Not supposed to have that on yet. Today's episode was sponsored by Ash over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Ash. They told me they wanted a blue patch and that I could choose a secondary color, and I chose orange. Not sure why. It kind of looks like it's like football team colors, but I'll be honest, I was pretty high when I made this, so yeah, let's go ahead and get this bad boy up on the wall, shall we? So yeah, here it is. Shit. It is in frame, which is good, but I seem to have lost the lower half of my body in order to make that happen. Whatever, I'll go with it. And yeah, before I move on, I do want to apologize to Ash. I accidentally used needles that were a little too big, so their patch is a little bit transparent. Hello. But hopefully that looks cool. If not, let me know and I will make it again better. Like I said, I was a little high when I made it. I found a gummy that helps me sleep, so my nights have been different recently. I asked Ash if they had any special shout outs they wanted me to give, and they did. And actually I read it last night and it was really sweet and it almost made me tear up. Again, hi, but it is really sweet. Shout out to my roommate Mads. Thank you for always watching Willie videos with me and letting me put them on your monitor while we do homework together. You're my favorite roommate I've ever had, parentheses, and it's been 3 years now, end parentheses. One of my best friends in the world, and the world is beautiful because you're in it. Heart emoji. That's really sweet. I feel very touched to be a very small part of whatever you guys' friendship. I don't process emotions very well, so I don't know how to contribute to that, but it's nice. It's really nice what you said. I'm glad you guys are buds. So thank you, Ash. Thank you, Mads. Boy, I am framed really poorly right now. Whatever. Let's get on with the episode. In my last video, I discussed Ghosts Can't Do It, a truly terrible piece of filmmaking that today is probably best known for being the big screen debut of current American President Donald Trump. I mean, that's certainly why I chose to talk about it. His media appearances are a huge part of how he forged his public image and tricked people into thinking he knew shit about business, so I was curious to see where it all began. Unfortunately, I didn't really get that far. As it turns out, Donald Trump is not the most interesting part of Ghosts Can't Do It. It is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen. Actually, no, scratch that. It is one of the craziest things I have ever seen. I watch a lot of YouTube videos about UFOs and stuff, but truly, I don't think I've ever seen more convincing evidence for the existence of extraterrestrials than this movie. Both because UFOs are clearly extra-dimensional, and because I have trouble believing that anybody from Earth could fundamentally misunderstand how humans work, as much as the filmmakers behind Ghosts Can't Do It seem to. There was a lot to discuss, so by the time I got to the part involving Trump, my video was already running a little long. And given that people start experiencing side effects if they listen to my voice for more than an hour, I felt like the best thing for me to do was to make a part 2. Scientists say I induce something called Havana syndrome. I haven't looked up what it is, but it sounds tropical. And just to be clear, even though Trump is only in one scene, and even though I hadn't originally planned on making this, I do think that this video is warranted. There was a time when presidents wouldn't publicly admit to seeing movies like this, so the fact that Trump appears in it as himself is absurd. Truly, were this Obama, it would be the biggest scandal of his career. Hell, if it were Nixon, it might be the biggest scandal of his career. And if you're curious to see just how insane this movie is, then I highly recommend going back and watching my last video on it if you haven't already. Even though I really don't discuss much of the plot in that either, I think I only get like 20 minutes in. If we're being honest, I could probably still do a third video if I really wanted to, but I think it'll give you a good idea of what we're dealing with here. That said though, I like all my videos to stand on their own, so here's everything you need to know about the plot in order to understand Trump's cameo. To those of you not looking at the screen, the video didn't freeze. There's just nothing you need to know. There is not a single goddamn reason for Trump to be in this movie. His part is not related to the story in any way. They could have spent the same amount of time following the main character as she competed in a pie eating contest, and it would have made just as much sense in the context of the plot. Still, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'll give whoever might need it a brief rundown of everything that happens leading up to the scene I'm going to discuss today. Even though I'm not sure why you're so resistant to just watching my other video. Whatever. The film follows Katie, a very beautiful and very bland woman played by Bo Derek. At the start of the film, Katie is living the good life with her much older husband Scott, but unfortunately, one day while the two of them are riding horses together in the snow, Scott suffers a heart attack. He's told that he won't be approved for a transplant because of his age, and he does not take it well.
Over 60, you don't get a heart.
You're joking. You're not joking. Who made that rule?
I don't know. Common sense, I guess.
That is probably the single best piece of acting in the entire movie. Now, I'm not allowed to say what happens next on YouTube, and I'm not an expert on the algorithm speak that you youths do, so hopefully I have my terminology right here. Basically, once it becomes clear that he'll never fully recover, he decides to corn himself. As the title suggests, he then becomes a ghost, and though he does get to keep talking to his wife, the two of them are unable to make physical contact. So they concoct a plan for Katie to kill a strapping young gentleman so that Scott's ghost can possess his body, and they can use it to do the titular it. It is sex. In case that wasn't clear. And yeah, as I said, nothing I just described is related to Donald Trump in the slightest. His part is this weird diversion that happens in the middle, and my best guess for why it's even there in the first place is either that they needed to pad out the runtime, or that this movie was actually just some money laundering scheme, and Trump was a part of it. Still, while I'm not exactly sure why this movie wanted Trump, it does make sense to me why Trump would want to be a part of this movie. Like I said in my last video, I can't imagine a single person watching this and thinking that it's good. But if there were a single person who did, it would probably be Trump. It very much feels to me like it's on his wavelength. And to show you what I mean, and why that's so upsetting, let's get into it.
Darling, you're now the chairman of the board. My entire empire. The whole damn thing.
All right, I could probably stop the video right there. I think that scene alone answers why Trump would want to be in this movie. I'm not sure if you can tell because I pixelated it so masterfully, but Bo Derek is actually completely corn in this scene, and that happens a lot in this movie. I said in my last video that I had a feeling that scenes like this were the only reason they got this made, and if I had to guess, I would say that that was also the main reason Donald Trump signed on to star. I think someone told him his face would be in the same film strip as Bo Derek's nipples, and that was all he needed to hear. I think it's clear based on the things he said over the years that Donald Trump loves beautiful women. And that's always been kind of funny to me because even despite the many, many allegations to the contrary, he's always struck me as weirdly asexual. I think he does desire beautiful women, but I think that desire comes more from here than from wherever his penis is. It's kind of hard to tell. He has a weird midsection. The way he talks about women feels weirdly similar to me as the way a closeted teen might. It always seems like he's just picking the most obviously attractive person he can find and saying the 80-year-old billionaire version of, yeah, she's hot. I think it's safe to say that the one thing Donald Trump actually cares about is his own public image. And because of that, I'd wager that his attractions are based less on what he wants and more on what he thinks will impress other people. I don't know that he actually has an innate sense of what he himself thinks is attractive. And if he does, he's definitely not listening to it. It feels more like he's trying to guess at the right answer than anything else. As with everything in his life, he sees women as a reflection of himself first and foremost, and so his main concern is having the best. Which again would explain why he's in this movie, because if you are the sort of person who views women as a commodity to be ranked, then Bo Derek probably would be considered the best at this point in time. And if I'm right in saying that this is how Donald Trump views women, then it would explain another reason why he'd be drawn to this movie, and that's that they're both really sexist. I spent a fair bit of time in my last video trying to figure out how this movie could be considered a comedy despite not even attempting to be funny, and the more I think about it, the more I think that in order to understand its humor, you need to think that the idea of a pretty woman doing anything is hilarious. I don't think that Bo Derek is the strongest actor in the world. Based on the performance she gives here, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that they just gave her a lot of peanut butter on set to make it look like she was talking, and then had someone else dub over her lines later. Which is not to say that she's not giving it her all. She does take a lot of big swings here.
It's necessary that you hold me and love me, great one, you son of a bitch!
But I never really felt like I had a great sense of her character. Her only discernible trait is that occasionally she'll strip naked mid-sentence, although why she does that, I'm still not entirely sure. I don't know if the people making this intended for the character to have a personality, but if they did, it got completely buried in Bo Derek's flat performance. And of course, it didn't help that I only understood like half the things in the script. And this is all just a long way of saying that the more I think about it, the more I think that this movie is meant to be a fish out of water sort of thing, like Private Benjamin or Legally Blonde or The New Testament. It kind of seems like we're supposed to expect her to be dumb just because she's hot. And I think the movie is meant to defy those expectations. But that never really comes across because she's so boring that you never really expect anything from her except for an occasional peek at her nipples. I mean, I guess to be fair, she doesn't not seem dumb.
You know, it isn't a five and dime operation. I mean, you'll have to, God, you'll have to work.
I shouldn't have hit him like that. But it was fun. Boom, bang, just like Sugar Ray. I should have been a boxer.
But I would argue that you could say the same thing about the ghost dude. I mean, I don't know if you caught it, but he made her CEO of his company when he died, and I'm not sure that that was the best idea.
Have you any idea of how much money we're worth?
Must be a ton, because an awful lot of very important people are always kissing your beautiful little ass.
Honey, $2 billion.
And you're waiting until now to tell her? I don't want to sound indelicate, but it's not like your death was a surprise. You chose when it happened. You couldn't have penciled in a couple of extra days to show her the ropes? I mean, I guess to be fair, it does sound like he tried to at least explain the business to her at various points in their marriage, but based on how that went, I feel like Scott should have realized that maybe she wasn't the right person for the job.
I tried to understand it, but I never really could. He would sit me down and try to teach me, but I just wanted to love him and take him outside and enjoy and play with all this.
The only way this makes sense is if he returns as a ghost who only Katie can see, because that way he'd be able to advise her and essentially run the company from beyond the grave. Which I guess, to be fair, is what happens, but there's no way he could have known that. Do you know how many lives would be ruined if a $2 billion company went under? This decision affects so many people. Honestly, I don't even understand how this was allowed to happen. Does this company not have a board to vote on matters like this? Because if not, they should. And if they do, then I don't know how this plan got approved. I can't imagine anyone besides Scott wants Katie to take over. Least of all Katie. She does not seem interested. She has other things on her mind.
$2 billion. That's $2 billion.
Why don't you go get a body and ravish me? Just like the old days. I'll wait right here.
All right, she just said that way too casually, right? She asked him to defy the laws of nature like it was picking up milk on the way home. And yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, this whole business subplot is where Trump comes in. About midway through the movie, one of Scott's former business partners comes down and tells Katie that the company is in trouble and it's up to her to save it. Even though she doesn't super seem like the right person for the job.
Well, I'm afraid now you're going to have to give it your complete attention.
Tell me.
Well, everybody's after bits and pieces of it. Raiders.
First, I'm not told yet, and everybody wants to gobble me up.
What can I do about it?
Well, you're chairman of the board. You sit on all the bits and pieces. You have to stop them.
But I have no idea how to do that.
I'll show you.
Yeah, I'm not sure you needed to involve her in this at all. She didn't even know she was in charge 2 scenes ago. He literally had to fly down to the Maldives to tell her that anything was going on. I feel like he should have just cut out the middleman and done everything himself. Especially because it kind of sounds like he's gonna be doing everything himself anyway. She made it very clear that she does not know what she's doing, so it sounds like he's just gonna be telling her what to do. Seems like it would have been a lot easier to just get her permission to be a proxy and let her enjoy her vacation. Not for nothing, but her husband did just die. Although in the movie's defense, or possibly in whatever the opposite of its defense would be, its offense, I guess. I think this character is a holdover from an earlier draft, and the only reason he's still here is because the people making this didn't give enough of a shit to edit him out. I said in my last video that I thought the original version of this movie ended with Scott moving on to heaven and Katie meeting someone else, and I think that that guy was originally supposed to be her love interest. They're subtle, but if you watch closely, there are a lot of little clues that he does love her.
Kate, I've always loved you. I'm sure you know that. Hell, just being around you for a while would be like Christmas for me. Don't say that.
And if the movie was setting up a romance between the two of them, then stuff like that would make a little more sense. But as it is now, it's just kind of weird. He spends most of his time on screen hitting on Katie while Scott watches on and gets mad. And I genuinely don't know how we're supposed to feel about it.
You say no, loud and clear.
You love me? I never knew.
Well, your Scott always was a blinding light.
Well, that's very nice of you, Will.
I'd say this dude is the closest thing this movie has to a likable character. Granted, I can't imagine he's a great guy, given how quickly he decided to move in on his boss's widow. I think Scott's been dead for like a week at this point, but the bar we're dealing with here is very low. I'd say that he represents the next step Katie could take in her life after the death of her husband. And by that same token, I'd say that Scott, as the ghost of her dead husband, is a very obvious metaphor for her being stuck in the past. He is quite literally refusing to move on. If this were a normal movie, the story would probably play out like this. Scott would be mad at the idea of his friend hitting on his wife, but then he'd accept that moving on is just a natural part of life, and he'd tell her to have fun and that he'll see her in heaven. Or if they really, really, really wanted Scott and Katie to end up together, they'd make this guy suck in some way, so at the very least, the audience isn't rooting for him. As it is now, he seems like a way better match.
The tango!
When you say dance, you mean dance with a capital D.
I love it!
I can see that, but seriously, Win. Scott and I never danced a step. He hated it.
Oh, you can't hate it.
No, I love it. But I don't think I could really dance with someone. It was so long ago when I was just a little girl.
It'll all come back to you. Come on.
How can it come back to me? I've never done this before.
Instead, they do this weird in-between thing where he's kind of perfect in every way. Katie just doesn't even consider it because Scott is still around, and that just ends up making everything feel messy and weirdly toxic.
Oh, Win, I'm not losing my marbles.
Oh, don't worry. If you do, I'll pick them up for you.
Now, she doesn't need you to pick them up.
I'm going to go home now to the islands.
Oh, I'll see you get there safely.
No, you don't. I take her there.
Not for nothing, but Katie seems kind of into it. You kind of want them to get together, so the fact that Scott won't let her doesn't feel like the grand romantic fantasy this movie thinks it is. It just feels possessive.
I understand, but someday, maybe not now, but someday, you're gonna have to, Kate.
Son of a bitch.
In my last video, I brought up the fact that John Derek, the director of this movie, pretty clearly groomed Bo Derek when she was younger. And a lot of this movie's quirks, let's say, feel like their attempt to try and prove to the world that that was a good thing that they did. They don't do a very good job at it, though. They never outright say that Scott married Katie when she was underage, but they do heavily imply it.
I'm sorry, Win. I've just never been with another man before. Not even to dance with.
If you were offered a choice, would you choose a young man?
You know, Scott, I've never really had one before.
And you are my first case.
Isn't that interesting? I was Katie's first case.
Honestly, I think with just a few small edits, this could turn into a straight-up horror movie. And, like, not one of those light PG-13 horror movies you see with your friends when you're in middle school. This would be depressing, existential, and rated R. A woman finally gets her freedom after the guy who grooms her dies, but then he comes back as a ghost and refuses to let her move on. And then, just for good measure, he makes her murder someone so they can be together again. Honestly, I would love to see Michael Haneke's take on that. I'm sure it would devastate me. And the thing is, I don't think I would be saying any of that had they just not included Scott's old partner. But having him there to show us what a somewhat normal romance might look like just kind of points out all the ways that Scott and Katie's relationship is deeply upsetting. Honestly, it wouldn't be hard to cut him out. If he's not a love interest, then really his only role in the movie is to advise Katie, and he doesn't do a great job at it. I can only remember him giving her one piece of advice, and not only had Scott already said the same thing 2 seconds earlier, but I'm also not really sure it was something she needed to hear.
And don't forget, to be all the woman that you are. Boggle their brains.
Okay.
Now, don't be afraid to be a woman. It's a deadly weapon, so use it.
Did I mention this movie is sexist? Actually, did I? That may have been my last video. I don't know. It all kind of runs together after a while. And yeah, as you may have guessed by the fact that she's eating a cup of noodles, she's in Hong Kong now. And that means it's finally time to talk about the Donald Trump cameo I've been teasing for 1.5 videos. Hopefully it lives up to the hype.
It's up to you now.
No problem.
Up to you, not up to me.
Riveting stuff. Like I said, this cameo doesn't add much to the plot, and I don't really understand why they bothered to include it. My best guess is that this was their attempt at having fun with the premise. Like I said, I think we're supposed to assume that because she's a pretty woman, Katie is innately useless at business. This movie came out 2 years after Art of the Deal was released, so I guess at this point Donald Trump was known primarily as a negotiator. And because of that, I think the idea that he'd be the one Katie has to negotiate against is funny. And the fact that she wins feels impossible when you don't know that she's being advised by a ghost. Like, I feel like this was meant to be the part in a movie where a 12-year-old challenges LeBron James to a game of basketball, but LeBron James doesn't realize that the kid secretly coated his sneakers in flubbers, so then when the kid starts bouncing really high and dunking, LeBron is all like, what? Unfortunately, this version of it doesn't really have the same oomph. For one thing, Flubber makes things fun to watch. There's jumping and flips, and sometimes the Flubber will just take a humanoid form and go off on its own to start dancing the mambo. Things here aren't quite as dynamic.
Well, gentlemen, I hope I was clear and not too vacant-headed. Because from the look of this room, it isn't woman's work we're doing here today, is it?
It has been decided that there is no point that can be argued. The point is based as it is stated. It's not ambiguous.
Also, I feel like even though the Flubber may enhance the kid's basketball skills, he's ultimately still the one playing. That's not really the case in this scene. Scott doesn't really help Katie here. It's more like he's using her as an avatar.
There's no room for any rhetoric. You must yield.
Must? Who the fuck are you? I never saw you before.
Must? Who the fuck are you? I've never even seen you before.
Don't come down to their level.
I feel like the fun of scenes like this is watching people exceed expectations, but if anything, I feel like Katie does worse here than I'd expect her to. I've never heard a less intimidating "who the fuck are you" in my life. I don't know if you've ever seen behind the scenes footage of a toddler doing voiceover work, but it has very similar vibes as that. She's basically just repeating what someone else said, but cuter. Although even if she nailed the delivery, the scene would still be dumb. Nothing she does here really feels like it should require a ghost. All they're doing is talking, and they're not talking particularly well. I promise I'll stop talking about flubber after this, but in a flubber enhanced game of basketball, there are feats of athleticism and points and other things you could point to be like, that could never have happened without flubber. Or possibly the enchanted shoes from Like Mike. The only reason I have to believe she's holding her own in this scene is because the outcome is decided by the people writing it, and they decided that she's doing well. Had it not been for that, I'd say she seems barely coherent.
Where does that have a bearing on the point of issue?
Tell them we're going back to the Indian Ocean to put away their knives and go home.
Now I would suggest you put away your knives. You haven't got one sharp enough to carve up a Scot. The great Scot lives on in me. And believe me, the city will be reduced to dust before you will best me. Does Taipan ring a bell?
I'll give her this. She does seem to be holding her own against Trump, but that's only because everything Trump says is dog shit too.
This has been interesting. Tomorrow at 11 we will vote, and that will settle it for now.
But be assured, Mrs. Scott, that in this room there are knives sharp enough to cut you to the bone, and hearts cold enough to eat yours as hors d'oeuvres.
You can bet your sweet little ass on it.
There are no other lines like that in the movie, and I have a feeling that's because Trump insisted on saying something that sounds cool. There's a non-zero chance he wrote that himself. Which is how I know that Trump isn't actually an expert at business. If he were, he would not have recorded himself saying the words he's saying. I imagine if a doctor were in a movie saying something medically inaccurate, they'd probably stop and say, "That's nonsense. Nobody would ever say that." Trump just said the dumbest line in history.
You're too pretty to be bad.
You noticed.
Really? That's the shot you're gonna go with after you call him pretty? Looks like his face just prolapsed. Also, was he pretty? It's hard for me to see him as anything but the horrible ogre goblin he is now, but did people find him attractive back when we still thought he was human? I mean, on one level, I find that unfathomable. I feel like even if I liked him, I'd still think he was heinous looking. I just keep it to myself more than I currently do. Still, it's possible. There is a part of me that could totally buy that at one point he was considered a sex symbol. Although it makes me feel deeply ill just to say that. I mean, this is something I'd hope to take to the grave with me, but I distinctly remember watching The Apprentice back in the day and being shocked at how good looking his kids were. Granted, Ivanka was doing a lot of the heavy lifting there, but even still, Don Jr. looks a lot like him, and he had certain angles that worked for him before cocaine did its thing. Of course, the only reason I'd even think to compliment Don Jr. is because I was basing my expectations of him on his dad. So if anything, that's a knock against Trump. He's the low bar I'm holding his children to. Then again, I guess he does just look like the 80s threw up on a person, which means at the time he was probably very in style. And with the right style, you can fool a lot of people into thinking you're good looking. I mean, look at me. I know you guys think I'm a stone cold fox, but it's really just the sweaters. After the meeting, Kate goes to Actually, no, I can't move on from this. I need to figure this out. I guess if you didn't know any better, you might say he had like a Scottish Gomez Adams thing going on, but that's mostly because he looks like he lives in a big dusty mansion and seems like he's probably into torture. Plus, let's be real, if you don't have an ambiguous ethnic charm, are you even Gomez? Also, for every ounce of Gomez, he has an equal amount of Lurch. And Uncle Fester. There's also quite a bit of Pugsley in there, too. Huh, that's weird. Is he just all the Addams Family men combined? I mean, I guess his hair does look like Cousin It. I googled Donald Trump young to see if maybe his whole thing made more sense in his prime, and maybe? Like, I feel like he could pass for the least attractive Kennedy. And I genuinely don't know if that's a compliment or not. And I don't have a problem with being attracted to a dictator. My phone background is a young Joseph Stalin. So handsome. I guess Sebastian Stan played him in a movie. That's gotta count for something. Didn't even wear prosthetics. Then again, Hollywood does always cast a lot hotter. I'm pretty sure Ryan Gosling played Robert Durst once. That's basically the same thing. I needed a clear answer, so I cut out the middleman and straight up Googled, was Donald Trump considered good looking? And I found a Reddit thread full of people who were just as confused as I was. Didn't really answer any of my questions, but it did feel nice to know that other people were in the same boat as me. The best answer I could find was someone saying he kinda looked like Owen Wilson, which... yeah, I'm not gonna be able to unsee that one, but that just raises more questions. Is Owen Wilson good looking? Yes, but I feel like it's in an unconventional way. It's as much because of his vibe as his physical appearance. He's not Luke. And Trump's vibe is rancid. But I guess if a good vibe can make you look better looking than you are, then the opposite is probably true. So maybe my opinion of him is just clouding my ability to judge. This is honestly kind of fucking me up. Some truths are foundational to my understanding of reality, you know? The sky is blue, grass is green, and Trump is a gross-looking monster. If it turns out that he's actually an okay to decent-looking monster, I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm not joking when I say that I need to think of a way to prove to myself that Trump actually does look like the moldy old potato that I think he does. Or I truly might have an existential crisis. I guess his hair... yeah, his hair feels like pretty indisputable proof that he's weird looking. And am I just saying that because it looks like something we'd use to insulate our walls back in the 50s before we realized it was toxic? It's ridiculous, but it's not the most ridiculous hairstyle I've ever seen. Top 10 probably, but still there are worse ones out there. It's more the fact that it never really caught on. As far as I know, not a lot of people have ever gone to their barber and said, "Give me the Trump." And I think that's pretty telling. After all, he's been one of the most recognizable people in the world for at least 4 decades at this point. He's probably been seen by hundreds of millions of people, so the fact that not a single one of them saw him and thought, yeah, I'd like to look like that, leads me to believe that even back in the 80s, people were watching this and heard Bo Derek call him pretty and thought, what the fuck is she talking about? All right, I feel better. After the meeting, Katie goes to what is either a hotel or some sort of bathhouse, and things get weird there. Even by the standards of this movie, which I didn't think was possible. I'm not going to go into this side plot too much, both because I don't fully understand what happens, and because... well, here's a brief snippet of what happens. See for yourself.
No! No, I can't let you rape me! Oh no. Oh.
Which is the thing about this movie. A lot of the time, I have to squeeze every drop of interesting from whatever I'm talking about just to make a video work. But with Ghosts Can't Do It, there is so much insane shit that I had to leave over the cutting room floor. What? Did I just have a stroke? There's so much insane shit that I had to... There's so much insane shit that I had to leave on the cutting room floor. Yeah. I could easily do a third video on this movie where I go into the plot a little more in-depthly. Well, not very easily. You just saw how bad I am at speaking, but there's a lot of material to work with here. So if you want to see more Ghosts Can't Do It, let me know in the place where the words are down there. That said, before you decide, know that a lot of the stuff I skipped over for a reason.
No, you came here to rape me!
Oh, you want to get raped?
Yes, every day of my other choice is kill.
Jesus Christ. For the purposes of this video, the only thing you need to know about this part is that that dude chasing Katie with a gun is trying to make her take sleeping pills so she'll miss her next meeting with Donald Trump. And again, I'm not entirely sure what's going on here because this movie is inscrutable, but I think that means that that hired goon is working for Trump in some way. I don't think Trump is the one who hired him, but certainly someone working with Trump did. Otherwise, like, why would they care if she met with him or not? And that would make sense because Trump is a villain here. After the concept of mortality and the relatively innocent man Katie wants to murder, he's the biggest antagonist. Hell, even if Trump had no connection at all to the guy trying to drug our protagonist at gunpoint, he'd still be kind of a bad guy. He dragged a widow away from her vacation to try and stage a hostile takeover of the company her husband left for her. If you think about it for 2 seconds, he doesn't come off great here. But also he kind of does. But like everything else he's ever done, his entire cameo in this movie seems like it was designed to trump up his own public image. No pun intended. He's trying to make himself look like the Donald Trump he wants the world to believe he is. It doesn't really matter to him if, when you think about things critically, you realize he's bad. All he cares about is that he seems good. Like, you'd think at some point he'd stop and be like, maybe let's cut the part where a woman is force-fed pills on my behalf. But I don't think he actually cared about that, because all that stuff happens when he's not on screen. And it's not like he couldn't have changed it. It feels very obvious to me that his grubby little hands are all over the final film. His priorities were just elsewhere. Katie is ultimately drugged, but with the help of her ghost lover, she manages to wake up on time and make it to the meeting.
Did I win? I did, didn't I?
You were good.
I read your book. And I won. I did. I beat you.
You were very good. You played the situation perfectly.
So I beat the situation, but not you.
That's what you did.
I think you like to make mischief.
You noticed that too.
And it's weird that he's saying he won, because I've never seen someone look more like a loser than Trump does in this scene. Like I said, the whole point of this cameo is to have Katie win, but he is so fragile and concerned with his public image that he couldn't let that happen. This is the same bullshit he's still pushing today. Nothing has changed. Well, actually, no, that might not be entirely true. Not to go back to the whole was he attractive discussion, but I don't know. I really needed to figure that one out. So I started asking people I know with a better sense of history than myself. And according to my brother, he was once called the Robert Redford of New York, which, I don't know, like maybe a very, very, very rough draft of Robert Redford. When he told me that, though, I needed confirmations, so I Googled it, and the only results were of Robert Redford talking about how much Trump sucks. Rest in peace. The only instance of people saying they look alike I could find was in a 1976 profile of Trump in the New York Times. And while I'm not sure, I do get the sense that, like this movie, Trump had some input there. I kind of think he asked them to include that part. My theory is that when Trump was beginning to craft his public image, he wanted his good looks to be a part of it, but unlike his business skills, people could actually look at him and see that what he was saying isn't true, so it never took. And if I'm right in saying that, it means that all the jokes people make about his appearance probably really get to him. I don't have any deeper point to make about that. I just think it's really funny. I genuinely hope his feelings are hurt. Again, though, if you cut the part about him being pretty, this is exactly how I'd imagine a Trump cameo would play out today. He hasn't really changed up his shtick all that much from his first media appearances. And really, I think that's how Trump became who he is today. If he has a strength, it's that he knows his brand. He had a specific vision of who he wants us to think he is, and he told everyone that that's who he is until enough people started to believe it. Which is honestly just so frustrating. That shouldn't have worked, and the fact that it did makes it hard for me to have faith in humanity anymore. He's just so clearly not the Trump that he says he is. And there are plenty of facts and figures and bankruptcy documents to back that statement up. And in all fairness, I don't know what his track record was like at the time that this movie came out, but I feel like he could have been batting 1,000, and even still, it's absurd to me that he managed to get so many people to buy into his bullshit. Like I said, it very much seems like the reason he's in this movie is because at the time it was made, he was thought of as the apotheosis of a good businessman. And even if he did make some good decisions at the time, I don't get how people would think that. Not for nothing, but the only reason he has a business to begin with is because of his dad. And from what I understand, Trump was not Fred Trump's first choice of successors. I'm pretty sure that originally, Trump's older brother Fred was supposed to take over for his dad. As best as I can tell, the only reason he didn't is because he didn't want to. I mean, there's a much longer, sadder, darker story there, but that seems to be the basic gist. Even Trump's own father didn't think Trump seemed like the best businessman, and he was choosing from a pool of 5 people. Or 3 if you assume that his daughters weren't in the running, which, based on what I know about him, feels like a pretty safe assumption. And I'm hesitant to say anything nice about any Trump, even the ones publicly talking shit on Donald seem a bit shifty to me, but I read a little bit about Fred Trump Jr. to write this, and I dare say he seemed kind of cool. It seems like his father had a very specific vision of who his oldest son was supposed to be, and rather than try to conform to that, Fred Jr. kind of just did his own thing. His dream was to be a pilot, so he left his dad's company and did just that, leaving a spot for Donald to swoop in and become daddy's best boy. Obviously, take everything here with a grain of salt, because I sure as shit don't trust my own reading comprehension skills enough to feel confident that anything I've just said is true, but if it is, it means that Trump didn't become Trump because he was smart or savvy or charismatic. It was because he was willing to become the person his father wanted him to be. And honestly, even if everything I just said is completely made up, I'd still say that the last part is probably true. People have spent the better part of a decade at this point trying to understand Donald Trump, and while there's a lot of ways you can explain him, you know, con man, fascist, piss enthusiast, the more I think about it, the more I think he's just an overgrown little boy doing his best to be father's favorite. Earlier in this video, I said that this movie told us everything we needed to know about Donald Trump, and while I still think that's true, the reasons why that is are a bit different than I was expecting. Going into this, I thought it was obvious why Trump would be drawn to this movie. It's about an older man who breaks all the rules and defies God so he can get back with his much younger, hotter wife. It's everything Trump aspires to be. Or at least it is nowadays. The more I think about it, the more that explanation doesn't really add up, because while he certainly aged into the creepy old ghost man in this movie, at the time it was made, he still had a while before he got there. The fantasy of inhabiting the body of a younger man so that he could pleasure his younger wife shouldn't have been very high on his list at this point, because he was still relatively young. I doubt he was very good at sex, but he probably thought he was. Someone that concept probably would have appealed to, though, is Trump's dad. I mean, not literally, he was dead when this movie came out, but... And obviously, I don't know for sure that Fred Trump was the sort of misogynist hoe bag that would give the impression that embracing a view of women in line with this movie's general mindset would be a way for his son to seek his approval, but based on a cursory glance of his Wikipedia page, I'd say that it's certainly a possibility. Before I continue down the rambling road that will hopefully lead to a point eventually, I do want to take a second and apologize to all the asexuals out there. God, if I had a nickel for every time I had to say that. I mean it, though. Earlier I said that Donald Trump always struck me as a bit asexual, and I want to take that back, both because I don't want to group you guys in with him, and because I'm not sure that that's actually what I believe. The point I was trying to make is that the attractions he professes to have feel very put on to me. He might be asexual, but he might also be heterosexual, or possibly even secretly homosexual. Actually, no, there's no way in hell that he's gay, but he probably did do some weird stuff in prep school. Still, whatever his actual desires are, I don't think that there's a world where he doesn't still seek out a bunch of hot blonde ladies to be his wife for a few years before dumping them for a younger model, because I don't think he's driven by any sort of genuine desire that exists within him. I think that everything he does is done in pursuit of being the best. And like I said, I think that he thinks there is a best. And it's the blandest, most boring version of the best you could possibly imagine. There are a couple of sentences tucked away in the middle of Trump's brother's Wikipedia page that really stuck with me, because I feel like they explain Trump as well as anything I've ever read. Fred Trump left the company to pursue his dream of being a pilot, quickly being accepted at Trans World Airlines, which created tension with his father. According to Fred Jr.'s daughter, Mary L. Trump, her grandfather dismantled him by devaluing and degrading every aspect of his personality. She said that Fred Sr. and Donald mocked him for his decision to become an airline pilot, comparing it to being a bus driver or a chauffeur. I think the reason that stood out to me is because in a million years, I don't think I would ever think that thought. I mean, I get what Trump and his dad were saying once I hear it. You are quite literally chauffeuring people across the sky. There's nothing wrong with being a chauffeur, but they're a couple of assholes, so I get why they would take issue with it. Also, I'm sure it's a lot more work and a lot less money than they're used to. Plus, it's a way to actually contribute to society, so, that's not really their scene. And I personally would never want to do it. I hate heights, and it sounds way too stressful. I know for sure that I would be way too worried that I'd end up in a Malaysian Flight 370 situation to ever land safely. Still, the idea that you would see that someone is an airline pilot and think anything besides, wow, that's really cool, is insane to me. By any human metric, that's a dream job. The fact that Trump couldn't seem to comprehend that suggests to me that he doesn't really have any concept of self-fulfillment or social responsibility or really any of the shit that's actually important in life. I truly believe that if he ever had any humanity, he's buried it way too far down at this point for it to matter, because he only functions in the shallow. He transformed himself into the walking facade of the human he wished he was. He's a gold-plated mirror reflecting society's id back on us, and he thinks that makes him a genius. I feel like Trump was the kid on the playground who, when you were playing superheroes, he said that his powers were all the powers. He wants to be Robert Redford walking home with Bo Derek on his arm to the biggest, gaudiest mansion he can find, covered in as much gold as possible, because gold is the fanciest, most expensive thing there is. I think that's just as true today as it was in 1989, which is funny because those two people I just mentioned might not be the first ones to come to mind anymore when you're trying to think of the best. Like I said, Trump is extremely 80s, and I think that's because that's predominantly the world he forged himself in. He hasn't really grown since back in the day when he first achieved his ultimate form. I don't think it would make sense for him to. He's already become his own personal version of the best, so why would he ever try to change? He looked to his father and the cast of American Psycho that he called a social circle, and distilled himself down into the perfect encapsulation of what made those people tick. And then he just never stopped being that. I think that's why he stagnated for so many years between when he first rose to prominence and when he became president. He stayed the same so long that he became almost retro. By the time he came back around and said, let's go back to the world the way it used to be, people were willing to believe that he would be the one who could get them there, because he never really stopped being an avatar of that world. And really, I think that's why he's such a terrible president. I mean, the fact that he's clearly a Nazi certainly doesn't help, but even if I agreed with everything he believed, I think he'd still be bad. It's the job of the president to get us to a better world, but I don't think that Trump is capable of perceiving the world as anything beyond what he already believes it is. He has no vision of a better tomorrow. The only thing he can see is how he can exploit today to continue to make himself the best. There are many reasons Donald Trump may have been drawn to this film. The creepy pedophilic undercurrents, the plot that revolves around the protagonist hurting other people for their own personal gain, the fact that one of the main characters is a gross billionaire who refuses to follow the rules.
Very much against the rules.
I don't like rules.
Truth is, I'm probably just overthinking things. Odds are he agreed to do it because they agreed to kiss his ass, and He likes to hear himself talk. That's the majority of what motivates him. He's really not that complicated. Still, I do think there may have been something else that drew him to this in particular, and that's that it's kind of just on his wavelength. I'd argue that Trump and this movie share the same worldview. The same stupid, shallow worldview. There are a lot of dumb parts of this movie. Honestly, there are only dumb parts of this movie, but I would say that the dumbest is just the plot in general. It genuinely bugs me that Scott spends so much time trying to get back to being human, because, like, he's pretty much been told that heaven exists.
You're an angel. Oh. Well, I must say, you're a gorgeous one.
Thank you. Gorgeous is a nice word.
He can spend eternity in paradise, and he chooses to concoct some weird murder plot instead. I guess I get wanting to be with your wife, but, like, I don't know, just wait for her to die too. She'll be by your side in like 40 years, which in the grand scheme of eternity isn't that long. I truly don't get why anyone would ever want to go back instead of trying to get somewhere better. But if I've learned anything from watching this movie or from the past decade, it's that apparently a lot of people do. But yeah, that's my video. Please like and subscribe and share and comment and hype. Hype, goddammit. Apparently some people don't have hype, but other people do, and I don't know how hype works, but it's been helping me. And like I said in my last video, if I make the leaderboard, I will do a little dance. Which, like, you guys don't want to pass up the opportunity to see me do a little dance. A very little dance. Also, if you have some money to spare and are looking to help me out financially, you can do so by, this is how I live. I should know this better. Super thanksing? No, I say that last because that, okay. So, Patreon, it's late. Patreon, becoming a member, or super thanks, which, speaking of, I have some super thanks to super thanks back. Nailed it. Super thanks to this boy Jason, Dr. Skellabone, ultra thanks to Dr. Skellabone. Dr. Skellabone, I want to say you're almost too nice to me. Don't feel obligated to give, but also, like, I really appreciate it, but also, like, give what you can. But also, if you want a patch, you've more than earned it, so let me know. However you would let me know. I read the comments, so I'll just comment somewhere. But don't do it as super thanks unless you want to super thanks me. I don't know, but thank you, Dr. Skellabone. Did I say it's late? Jen Tribenbrook, 33. I still know I'm mispronouncing that, but I don't know how. Incrediballoons, thank you so much. Pip9682. Danny Arndt, 5833. Or Danny Arndt. Okay, because no one's last name is RNDT. Also, I don't know if Danya is a name, but it's pretty if it isn't. Someone should take the name Danya. Thank you, Danny Arndt. Sada Prescott, Nina Eliza Stratton, Darby Fake Name 1699, Willie Bean. That's my name. Thank you. Bunaroo, B Bureau 12, Simone Wilcox 3316, Schlabadoo 22, Soft Sad Boy, Boxo Kittens, not 0909, Pazuzu Paws, Q Squared 8833, Fate 023, Laura Hertzman, Unexpected Ancient Bear, Patrick Felon, Angel B. Jux, Megan C. 4442, Pumpkin Spice Creations, Tortilla Chips 3911, Carolyn H. 6852, Incrediballoons, Jesus Incrediballoons, thank you. You guys are all really nice. I appreciate, like, I think, like, I guess I'm thanking you, but, like, know that I mean it. I'm not just being, like, an asshole. It really is insane that so many people have supported me through this stupid thing that I do. It means the world. Dr. Skellabone, Jen Tribenbrook, Dr. Skellabone, Darby Fake Name 1699, Dr. Skellabone, Ben Tribenbrook, Schlabadoo 22. I think I went 5 months back because I was worried I would miss some, but so hopefully I didn't. But if I did, let me know. I feel like the way I'm talking, I should end this video, but I can't because the other thing is you may have noticed that I actually like wrote something while I was making it. It says it's gonna say fuck Trump. That seemed thematically appropriate, and I'm going to finish this and figure out a way to put it on a t-shirt, and I'm gonna try and start selling some of the stuff that I make. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll probably have something ready to go by the next video, but still figuring out specifics. Still probably gonna make ghouls. I got a lot of fires in the iron. Wait, irons in the fire. Anyway, yeah, let me know if you guys think that's a good idea. Also, like and subscribe. Please do like, though. I feel like if there's one thing that the hype button has taught me, it's that all of the stuff that I say half-assedly at the end of the video really does help. So, like, comment, subscribe, share, post on other platforms. Other stuff, I don't know, but it really does help. So, like, I know that I don't personally do it for other people, but if you could do it for me, it would mean a lot. I should start doing it for other people. I'm trying to be more like do what but I watch YouTube on my TV generally, so it's hard to like. But if you are thinking about it now and just want to like and subscribe and turn on notifications, they always say that one. It would really help. So I'm gonna give 5 seconds. 1. You just sat there in silence and didn't do it? What's wrong with you? You get 5 more seconds. That's my video. Goodbye. Hello, it's time for posing. Yeah. Why am I all like... move, man. Alright. No, that's too... That's fine. I think this video is going to have the name, like, this movie taught us everything we needed to know about Donald Trump, because that was my general thesis. Was it my thesis, or is that's just what I wanted the title to be, and so I kind of shoehorned it in? I don't know, this is one of those videos where it's like, I feel like I ended up having a bigger point that I wasn't expecting coming into it, but then that point was too big for me to actually make, so I ended up just kind of rambling for a bit towards the end. And usually when I do that, you guys are really good at like understanding me and then like saying what I was trying to say, but succinctly and in a way that constitutes English. But I don't know. I'm always nervous when I put stuff out like this. But that's beyond the point. I might need to cut this segment short and eat dinner. As you can tell, I'm a little bit low on protein right now. So I guess like that's good. Honestly, I may have gotten it in one. I'll do a couple more. So you think it's gonna right here is going to be Donald Trump, and right here is going to be a nude Bo Derek, and then covering her nipples and his eye nipples. It's just gonna say NSFW or censored or gross or something. My point is that Donald Trump is gross, like a woman's boobs. It is insane that we can just let people show boobs. I feel like it must be because there's a fly. Like men are the ones kind of pushing the ship, and they're like, they don't trust themselves to not get aroused by boobs. That's my only theory, because it's like, who gives a fuck about boobs? Like a different color of skin. What am I doing? I'm gonna be honest, my heart's not really in this posing section, and I'm very hungry. So I'm just gonna hope that that first picture I posed for looks good. I'm a little nervous too. If you guys noticed, so in the top between starting this video and finishing this video, I took a family vacation to Italy. My mom wanted to see where our family comes from, and so it was really fun. But if like mid sentence I become tanner and gain like 15 pounds, that's why. And I am still on the 15 pounds up scale, so I'm not sure if this will be my favorite thumbnail to look at, but there we go. Sometimes you go to, like, I've heard people go to Italy and like in Europe, and it's like, yeah, I lose weight because Lord knows what's in American food, but it's not good for you. Really good though. Although I'll give Italians this. They got our ass on pasta. It's not like they're like their sauces are good, but the main thing is just getting it al dente. They have like the perfect consistency, and I don't really think about it that much, but when I was there, I was like, yeah, this really is to the tooth. This might be my worst outro ever. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Goodbye.